up, get out right out of your bed, that's your quicksand. Getting rid anxiety and head, you can fix it. Rid of stigmas, all of them you said, we ain't listening. Just remember, try to do your best, you can win this. Maurice Benard, State of Mind.
Hi, how are you? This is State of Mind on Sunday. And I'm talking like this because I want to. All right, so what can we talk about? There's not a lot to talk about. Not a lot. I took TT to, where did I take TT? What happened with TT? She did something, and I forgot, totally forgot what I did with my granddaughter. Oh, she went to General Hospital, and she gave away shirts, State of Mind shirts, to all the not actors, but the crew and the makeup and everything. She was cute, but she's not usually not around people, so she got real shy. Didn't really want to talk. Anyway, who do I have today? I have someone who did The Border. You like The Border? 24. And she met her husband on Relic. But you already know her because I didn't really work with her, but I don't know. I don't know if we had any lines or anything. But she was Christina's lawyer. And you know someone's good when actresses are going, she's good. No, I mean really good. And I'm like, yeah, she's good. 'Cause she is good. She's a very good actress, nice person, married to a sexy, good-looking, talented Carlo Rhoda. Her name is NAZNEEN Contractor. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
What's going on?
I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy you're here. Since your great husband we left on you guys' I want to know from your mouth
Yeah.
how you guys met.
So you want to know the truth?
Yes. Yes.
He told it pretty well. He did. So I met Carlo when I had just turned 18. It was my second.
Wow.
It was my first time I met him. It was my second job ever. My first big guest starring role on this show called Relic Hunter, where Tia Carrere was this female Indiana Jones, and I was this princess of this made-up Middle Eastern state called Endostan. And I was Endostan, yeah. And Carlo played my strict father.
Wow.
Who was trying to marry me off to avoid a jihad, essentially. And I didn't want to marry this guy. And so I run away. So I met Carlo. I think I was on that shoot for 7 days. He was on for 3 or 4. And I was really green. And it was all so new to me. And I was so excited. It was like every day I was at Disneyland, I was a kid.
But did you feel like maybe he was too flirtatious or anything?
Well, I was also Carlo would flirt with a houseplant, okay? He's the most flirtatious guy ever.
Right.
And an equal opportunity flirt, you know? And I was exactly the same way, exactly the same way. Very much so in my youth. So we really clicked. I think we really fed off each other's energy. But, I was like, what do I know about anything? I'm 18 years old. I did feel a little bit a little something in my stomach, oh, this is kind of weird. I'm kind of attracted to this person, but I shouldn't be. And I felt a little confusion. But then we wrapped and I did the show and it was great. And then 6 years later.
But when you wrapped,
yeah,
there was no
No, there was nothing.
It was just I'll see you later.
Yeah, I'd probably never see him again.
He didn't say, give me your number.
No, he had a girlfriend. I had a boyfriend.
Oh.
He was like, we were not in any way.
I get you.
You know, there's an age difference of almost 22 years too.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I didn't even think about it. And then 6 years later, you know, fate brought us together. He walked into this bar that I was working in Toronto, a very famous bar. And I had just done a pilot for a network, this Canadian broadcaster, The Border, that he was also on another show on that same network. So he walked in, and he walked in with his co-star from 24, Mary Lynn, who plays Chloe. And my girlfriend, my best girlfriend, is like, oh my God, that's Chloe from 24. And I hadn't watched the show yet. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. She's like, oh my God, she's with that really hot guy that used to come in here all the time. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, I think that guy played my dad on Relic Hunter. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. She's like, oh my God, you have to give him your number. And I had a boyfriend, and I was like, I'm not gonna give him my number. And she's like, no, you've got to. And I mean, I worked at a bar. I used to give out a fake number all the time. And so then I went up to him, and I'm like, hi. And he's like, hi. I said, do you remember me? You know, we worked together many years ago. I played your daughter. And he's like, yeah, I remember. He didn't remember me.
Oh, he did?
I don't think so. I mean, it was a long time. I was like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, 18, and then I was 24. And then we talked a little bit, and he was very like charming. He said, you know, I told him about the pilot that I did, and he was on another show called Little Mosque on the Prairie for the same network, and so we knew a lot of the same people. And then at the end, I actually gave him my real phone number, the only guy I ever gave my real phone number to. And he was like, I'll never forget, he said, the next time I come in here, could I request something of you? And I was like, okay. He's like, could you wear shorter shorts? Because I was wearing these really short shorts that were like kind of brown, and people used to think I was wearing nothing.
That's funny.
And then I thought he would never call me. I mean, why would he call me? And he called me the next day before he left for Los Angeles, and he left a voicemail, and I kept that voicemail on my flip phone, I don't know, for like a year and a half.
Damn.
I never deleted it. Yeah, he's got a great voice.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Now, when did you see him again?
So then he came back. Now he was doing this show. He was also on 24, so they would come back and shoot the Canadian show on his breaks from 24. So then he came back in November, and he didn't call me. And I called him, and I'm like, I'm so disappointed in you. And he's like, why? I said, because you haven't called. He's like, oh, right, yeah, let's meet. So we met again in November. Like nothing happened, like just hanging out. And then he said, you know, why don't you come to Los Angeles that December? And so I came to visit him, and I left that visit, and I went home to my two best friends, who are still my two best friends, and I'm like, I'm gonna marry that guy. They were like, no, you're sleep deprived, you partied so much, like, this is not the guy you marry, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm gonna marry him. Like, I cohabitated with him for 4 days, and I'm like, I could do this for the rest of my life. And I never wanted to get married before that. And I had lots of guys, and I was just like never interested, like, you know, they were like passing fancies, you know. And I just never met anyone that I really, really wanted to be with.
That's when
him.
you know.
I know. I mean, I knew before
Obvious.
he knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I had to convince him.
When you feel like you can be with somebody all the time for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
then you
it was
know
like,
that.
it was very easy for me.
So then you guys got together and this and this and that. You take care of him during his hard times?
And he does for me too.
Both?
Yeah, I mean, I think that marrying another actor is...
yeah. I want to. That's what I want to know about.
That's a very complicated thing for many reasons, right? So, you know, practically, there's a part of it that's great because we both completely understand each other's industry and the hours and all of that stuff. But, you know, but also we're both actors. We have a family. Like, if neither of us are working, what are we doing? You know, where's the money going to come in from? So we're both freelance.
That's
So
true.
there's a risk there, right? There's an inherent risk.
What about ego?
Okay, so that's another thing, right? So I think that, you know, there has to be a balance, right? And obviously, you know, I started acting before I met Carlo. I was, you know, a series regular. I had a career before I met my husband. And so he knew that when he married me. And I think that it's about you sometimes have to like check your ego. You do. And you know, and I think that there's two things.
Like if he gets a job,
Yeah.
but you're always going to be happy for him.
Always.
But there are some, you know, there's some two people, both actors,
Well, we're
that
both-
don't want the other one to.
Well, it's not that we don't want it because money is money for our
Right,
family, right? Obviously, and obviously we don't want each other to go away. Like that's really hard, like when the other one's away, obviously.
right.
But you know, I think that there is like we both love what we do so much. We both feel like we were put on the planet to do this.
Yes.
That when there is, of course, when one of us is working and the other one isn't working, that you feel a little left out.
Yeah.
You feel a little
Yeah,
left
yeah,
out.
a little
Like
left
you don't
out.
feel jealousy or anger. You feel left out, right?
But I'm going to ask you a fan question
Okay.
that I'm always asked.
Okay.
Like if he's making out with other chicks, or if you're making out with dudes, how do you feel? I wish Carlo was
Oh my
here.
God, you should have totally
I
asked
know,
Carla
I
that.
know.
Because I actually don't care. And I think the reason I don't care is because I have had to do so many of those scenes, and maybe because I'm a woman and it works differently. Like, but for me, it's always a performance. Like I don't
Yeah.
actually, I don't, maybe because I get turned on by things that are intellectual and not necessarily physical, because
Yes.
that's just the way I work as a woman. Me kissing another guy or being in bed with another guy, like all I'm thinking about in that moment is how does this look on camera? That's all
Right,
I'm
right,
thinking
right.
about. I'm thinking about how am I selling this? How am I going to sell this? Do I look good? Does this, that? Like, is my stomach sucked in? Is
Yeah,
this
yeah,
like, you
yeah.
know, like, it's so technical for me. It is.
Yeah.
I don't actually, it may look like I'm being lost in an emotion or whatever, but I'm not. I'm literally just,
Because
and I actually don't even like to do it because I'm like, oh God, I got to diet and I got to do this and I got like it's a
I'm
pain
the
in
same-
my
I'm the
ass,
same
right?
as you,
It's
yeah.
a pain in my ass. So it doesn't. So and that's the way I think that he should perceive it.
Yeah.
Right. But obviously he doesn't. He's a hot-blooded Italian man who doesn't want to look at his wife with anyone else on screen.
I would be like Carlo.
Yeah, he is. And you know what? And I'm like, we've had to talk about it. We've had to talk about it because it upsets him. And I explained to him, like, you shouldn't feel in any way threatened by it, because it's not like just because I kiss someone, I have feelings for them. That does not how it works for me at all. And often the people I'm working with are married and have kids, are just in the same boat as I am, right?
Yeah.
It's so much different when you're older, right? So
Yeah.
when you're younger, it's totally different.
It is different.
But when you're older, everyone has kids, everyone's married, everyone's like, it's your job.
Yeah.
So we've had to talk about it, and he's had to find a way to make his peace with it, because I'm not gonna not work.
Right.
I'm not gonna not work. I mean, I was doing this before I met him. I'm gonna do it for the rest of my life. I'm gonna do it as long as I'm allowed to do it.
And I will say this, just by talking to you right now, I believe what you're saying, that it's just it ain't a thing.
It's so
It
not
ain't
a
a
thing.
thing.
It's so
Sometimes
not a
people say
thing.
that in front of me here, and I'm like,
But it's not. And maybe because I've had to do so many of it, like
Maybe,
I've had to play,
yeah.
it's so not a thing. It's literally like, okay.
Now, here's when it is a thing, I think. Because my wife, early on, we would have fights, man, arguments.
Yeah,
Like she was
we did too.
20 and I don't fucking know how old I was. But it would be just, it was ridiculous. I said, look, it's my job. Now, I don't know what you want me to do. I can't do that. It is, like you're saying, not a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. I wouldn't, and I'm not going to sit here and say I could do it. I could watch my wife. She's not an actress, but because I don't know. I'm Spanish.
Yeah,
And
same thing.
You got that.
You guys have that same hot blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would tell Carlo, you have nothing to worry about, because from what I just talked to your wife about, I believe it wholeheartedly. It's less of anything that somebody else may think.
Totally.
Because,
And
at
also,
30 and I'm 61, it's...
Yeah, and also, obviously, like, I'm not in my 20s anymore, even though, you'd never know. But those roles are like, don't come around as, like, those type of roles don't come around
Yeah,
as
I
much
get you.
anymore. And I'm so relieved. I'm so happy.
I know.
I am. I am. Like, not that I don't want to be perceived as beautiful and desirable, obviously, but like, I don't, it doesn't need to be like.
And like you said, which is very true, that's kind of the first time I heard it, you have to worry about what you eat.
Oh God, so much. And like,
and you're always
well, is this camera angle okay?
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had 2 kids, like.
Well, it doesn't.
It's-
Yeah, and also it's amazing. Like I've killed myself for a week or 2 weeks, and then you're under the sheet anyway. It don't
Right?
matter.
I know.
It's
you
like
just
you
see the
did it for
shoulder.
nothing. Yeah, this is my little shoulder
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So you were born in India?
That's right. In Mumbai.
Oh, I want to hear about India.
It's a pretty amazing place.
How is it? What is it? What's it like?
So I was born there. My father was working in Africa at the time. So I actually grew up in Africa. I grew up in Nigeria till I was 7. My dad and mom were there for a decade. And my mom just went back to India because her family was there to have my brother and I. But we would go to India twice a year for extended periods of time. And it's a huge country. It's a subcontinent. So I've actually seen very little of it because every time we go, we stay with family. So I feel like there's much to explore in India. I really am trying to manifest getting a job there or creating a job there and spending at least 3 to 6 months working there. I'd love to do that.
Like what kind of job?
Like an acting job, like write something to shoot there or get something that shoots there. I would love that. I would love that because it would give us as a family an opportunity to spend an extended amount of time there because there's so much that I haven't seen. But India is a country of extremes because you have exceptionally wealthy people and you have exceptionally poor people. And life on the street, you see that just walking down the street. You see people, you see children with no limbs that have been cut off begging.
Oh, no, I
and you
can't
see
do that.
people in like Rolls Royces and they're just on the same path. So it is very hard for some people who have never experienced those extremes to go to India. The aromas, the amount of people. I mean, there's over 1 billion people.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. So I think that a lot of people find that very overwhelming. It's loud. There's a lot of noise.
Like what's the noise?
Like the traffic, mainly, especially in the cities. And it's so funny because it's so hard for me to explain because I never grew up in India. I've spent a lot of time there. I grew up in Africa, I grew up in London, I grew up in Canada, now I live in Los Angeles. But I feel so Indian. So when I go to India, I just somehow relax into that chaos. That first night that I go to sleep and I'm jet lagged and I'm hearing the traffic that goes on all night, I can go to sleep like a baby. Again, I don't know why.
Because you're used to it?
And or there's something in like my
In your DNA?
DNA that really likes it or like tingles when I'm there. And it's so interesting because when I go to India, all my family looks at me like I'm not Indian because they think I'm Western because I've been raised abroad. But I feel so Indian. So it's like this it's this constant.
I don't understand. What's Western?
Like, well, because I've been raised abroad, right?
Right.
So even though I was born in India, I have an Indian passport. My Indian family who lives
Yeah,
in India,
yeah,
they
yeah.
look at me and they're like, well, you're not really Indian. You're not really like us. And I see the people I'm around here, and of course I'm not like them.
Right.
So I've always had this kind of like cultural disassociation where I want to belong to one space that has rejected me, and I'm in this space and don't really have
Yeah.
as much of an identity as well. So it's always been my Indianness, and people don't believe that I'm fully Indian. They don't understand that like people in India come in all different colors and shades.
Yeah.
And it's my dad was very dark complexioned and my mom was a little fair, and my brother and I just turned out more fair. So even in Hollywood, it's hard to explain to people. Like, they'll be like, oh, you can't play this person's brother. You guys aren't the same skin color. I'm like, oh my God, that's so insulting. I'm Indian, he's Indian. It doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
look at the Cosby family. Was Lisa Bonet the same color as like
No.
Alicia Rashad? Did it matter then?
No.
Right? Like we all come in different colors. You know that, right?
But
Like,
you
we all
can play kind of like I can play. Or
Yeah,
but
I do. I play a lot of
You
different
can
parts.
play a lot, even more than I can. But because my real name is Mauricio Jose Morales.
Oh.
So I'm full-blooded Spanish. But people think, nah, I'm Italian because I've been playing Sonny for 31 years, so I'm Italian.
Right.
But I'm full of, you can play everything.
I am lucky that way.
Very lucky.
Very lucky as an actress. I mean, that used to be, those doors were more open years ago. I mean, now it's become a little more, you have to be that thing to play.
Oh, I get you.
thing,
Yeah,
right?
I get you.
Which
That's
I find
true. That's true.
you know, which is great. But I also am an actor and I can play lots of things.
Yeah.
And I have lots
But
of
your
accents.
look is
and
like so different from a lot of. You can play anything.
every time Carla and I used to travel, my husband and I used to travel around. Like we went to Peru, they would think I was Peruvian. You know, we went to Morocco, they used to think I was Moroccan. They'd always think he was this foreigner
that?
who came and took a local girl.
Like you could play Mexican, right?
I mean, I've played Hispanic, yeah.
Yeah.
She wasn't necessarily from Mexico, but yeah, absolutely.
Like if you went to Mexico, nobody would think you're not from Mexico.
When I first moved to LA, I was shocked at how many people were speaking Spanish to me. I didn't understand. Also, I didn't drive, so I would like walk places, which I didn't realize was also an anomaly. So they saw like a brown girl walking the street. They were only speaking Spanish to me. And I'm like, why is everyone speaking Spanish to me?
Yeah. So, you know, what's funny is I wrote this on I didn't know what the hell I wrote. And then I figured it out. It says, start into darkness.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, Star Trek.
Yeah.
Right? Is that right? Into darkness?
Yeah.
How was doing that?
That was amazing. That was a great...
Do you have to wear stuff?
No, I actually played a human. I know. And I was disappointed about that, but then everyone reminded me that you'd be in makeup for hours and no one would actually recognize you. But I got that job 2 weeks before I gave birth to our son. My son.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was amazing. So when I was 3 months pregnant with our first child, I lost my dad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't even think that, I'm not even sure if he knew I was pregnant because he was in the hospital for a while before that. And I didn't want to tell him until like
How old
I
was he?
reached 3 months. He was young, he was 71.
Damn.
And he'd been sick for a long time. He'd been sick since I was 12, on and off. And so that year, we lost him in June. And, you know, I wasn't on a show before I got pregnant. And so I was just like unemployed. And that year we took his ashes to India.
Oh, wow.
And we went to these special... our special temples. I'm a Zoroastrian for his prayers because you do these special prayers when someone dies. And we took his ashes and we scattered them throughout the Sabarmati River, which is this long river that runs through India. So we went to where he went to school in Pune. We went up there, and then we went to Ahmedabad, and then we went to Bangalore, and we did this whole kind of tour of slowly sprinkling his ashes. And then we took some back to Canada. And when I went to all of these temples, like really holy places in our religion, I really prayed. I prayed that to get me through this time, because, you know, my dad is gone. And I prayed for something to happen in my career because I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, I moved to LA, I started working, you know, a few months in. I had a really good run, and then I got pregnant, and then I had nothing, and I'm like, is everyone going to forget about me? You know, what's going to happen to me? You know, and I asked my father to help me, because he was always the biggest supporter of my career, you know, very, very proud of his daughter, very insistent that I keep my last name and all of that stuff. And I prayed, and I feel like I prayed at these highest sort of temples. And then I came back to LA, and my manager calls me and he's like, I have an audition for you for Star Trek. And I was like, oh, great. And he goes, it's the last day they're auditioning this role. You have to be there in Santa Monica at 10 a.m. And they want to cast this role today. And they know you're pregnant, because no one wanted to see me. Like, no one wants to touch you with a 10-foot pole when you're pregnant, right, in this industry.
Yeah, but you pregnant at 3 months looks like nothing.
Right, but you know, I was flying a lot back and forth to Toronto because my dad wasn't well during that time. So it was like,
right,
it was hard. And I remember I did a pilot, and then I tested for one, and then they put me in another role in it, and then they recast me again. Like, it just felt like my career was not in a good place. And so they said they know you're pregnant. The shoot doesn't start till February, and I was supposed to give birth at the end of December, so 6 weeks. I was like, okay, great. So I practiced the audition with Carlo, and I go, and like I don't know what was happening. Like every route I took, there was like a fire truck, and then there was an accident, and I was running late, and I'm like so pregnant, you know, and I'm driving my Mini Cooper. And it's like 10, 11, and I'm not at the audition. And I call my manager. I'm like, I'm not there. I call Carlo. Carlo's like, don't worry about it. Like, don't get into an accident. Just go. So finally at 10:15, I pull up into parking, April Webster and Alyssa Weisberg's casting office. And I call my manager. I'm like, Harry's like, okay, great. Just have a great audition. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be great. I come. They're waiting for me. Right, they're waiting. And I'm like, hi, they're so nice.
Right.
Wow, look at you, you know, so big. And I do the audition. And then they're like, okay, great, do it again. And they gave me a note. And as I'm doing it again, like I see someone walk into the room and I don't really pay attention, like it's a guy. And then I finish and I kind of see like Alyssa like kind of stressed, like her energy kind of shifted. And it was J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams walked into my audition, watched it, and then they're like, I'm shaking just talking about it, so nervous. And then they're like, oh, okay, oh, Nazneen, this is J.J., this and I. He's like, oh, congratulations, when are you due? I said 2 weeks. And he was like, great. And then I left and I like immediately had to pee because I was so pregnant. And then I drove from Santa Monica back to Hollywood where we were living. And I get a phone call as soon as I land in Hollywood. Like I was going to go to a prenatal yoga class. And my manager calls me and he's like, yeah, they cast you on the spot. He's like, JJ just like watched your tape on the camera and gave you the part.
Well, he was in there. That's
Yeah.
why, guys.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Probably
It was
her
like-
being pregnant helped.
Well, and it was the first time I ever played a mom, too,
Ah, wow.
in that movie. So I really felt like that was my dad.
Yeah.
Like, because there were all of these things that happened that made me late, and if I wasn't late, he wouldn't have walked in.
Right.
You know, all of these like perfect divine intervention and fate, and like I feel like everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
You know, it's the
me too.
only way I can kind of make sense of my life,
Yes.
and I really feel like that was like it was just luck and timing and all of those perfect things. So that was my first job, and they were so nice. Like after having a kid. They were so wonderful and accommodating. They even used my son's picture as the baby picture of my kid in the show. So like Darius is in it. And we named our son after my father as well.
Oh,
His name was
really?
Darius, yeah. So
cool name.
yeah. So that was my big first Hollywood movie. You know, talk about a comparison to GH. We shot this much of a page, like no dialogue for 2 days. We shut down the 405 for 9 hours for no dialogue.
That's ridiculous.
For no dialogue.
Ridiculous, man.
Like insane.
So let's talk about GH because
Yeah.
I want to hear about how you feel about GH and everything.
Well, my mother is a huge fan.
Yeah, you told me that.
She loves you. She loves you. She's like, oh, you're going with Sonny? So when Carlo got on the show, she was so happy.
Forget it, yeah.
Forget about it. Forget about it. She was. I mean, he's already her favorite.
Right.
But she was really pleased. And then when I told my mom I was going to be on the show, she was really excited, and it was amazing because you know, I'm a first generation immigrant. You know, I have Indian parents. They have very high expectations. They've always had. I'm an actor. Like they've been very supportive, but you know, we become engineers and lawyers and doctors and accountants and all that stuff. So I was very lucky. They're always very supportive, but you know, they don't. I feel like they don't really understand what we do for a living.
Yeah.
I think because we enjoy it so much and we love it so much, it's hard for them to see it as work.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? Like
There was
in
a
what
movie
their
about-
sense of what work is.
Yeah, there was a movie about that, or even in the movie about Queen.
Oh yeah, the Freddie
Right,
Mercury, who's
right.
Zoroastrian. My dad went to school with him.
See?
Carlo has a great Freddie Mercury
They
story
don't,
too.
they that music or singer or acting, it's kind of not as how we
Yes,
think it is.
yes. I mean, yes. I think that there's a slight like sense that it's a bit frivolous and you
Right,
know, all that
right.
stuff. And also then I think that they find it very difficult to reconcile the amount of money you can make too doing it.
Yes.
Right? Like I think that that's also it's just, you know, it's just not their jam, you know what I mean? You know?
I get it, yeah.
But having said that, and I've been doing this for a long time, like over 20 years now, I get on GH. My mom watches everything I do, right? And she's an Indian mom, so she's like, it was good, you know? Like, it's like, she's not like, oh, it was amazing.
Right.
Like, she's not like, she says that about Carlo, but with us, it's different. I'm her daughter. She watches GH, she watches those courtroom scenes. She sends me a screen grab on WhatsApp, which she almost never does. And she writes, fantastic acting. And Maurice, I had tears in my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, my mom is proud of me. She's actually like, for
That's
her to say that,
amazing, yeah.
like, and also to be on a show that she really loves,
Yeah.
you know, like that's all like,
Yeah.
it's all. And she was the one, I mean, she's our Bible for GH because she explains to us everyone's relationship because she knows the show so
Yeah,
well.
sure.
So Carlo only knows what's going on in the show because of my mom.
Right.
She does because she
Same with
explains.
my mom.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. I don't know.
The mom's the best, right?
Yeah.
So she loved it, and you know, I was really prepared by Carlo of what to expect and all of that. So I felt that really helped me, obviously, and it
Right.
really helped me pull it off. But I really loved it because it felt like I was back in the theater, which is where I started.
Yeah.
And I loved the nerves that I got before doing a 4-page monologue and only having one shot to do it in front of all of the
Right.
regular cast members,
Right.
you know, all of these. And then also the scenes that we did, because they were a trial, getting to watch all of the other cast members work and give their testimony.
Yeah.
You know, I came home, I'm like, Carlo, these people are amazing.
Yeah.
He goes, I told you, I said, no, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Like they are able to produce in one take stuff that I know actors who are like, you know, whatever, leads a show, they need 5.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
need 6.
I didn't have any dialogue, but I
You
wanted,
know, you
I
had
wanted to have a
dialogue.
monologue so you could see what I did.
To see what you do. I've seen what you do. I've seen what you do. Don't worry. You got nothing to prove to me.
Right.
I had everything to prove to everyone else.
Well, you proved it.
But thank you. I really enjoyed it, though. I really felt like I got to play like a courtroom drama and be a, you know, big swinging dick lawyer. And
Right.
like, I loved it. I loved it. And everyone was so kind, so supportive.
They were.
So I was so moved by that because, you know, normally you come on set and like, you don't know what the temperature is
Yeah.
going to be.
You know,
and
they're very supportive.
especially when you're a woman, like you don't really know what's going to happen. And
They're very supportive. That's the way they are with every actor. You know, even
And
if they're
that's-
not that good, they're
that's
still
an
supportive.
amazing environment
is.
to work in because that is not every set.
Hell no.
That's the opposite. A lot of the sets I've been on, where it's
agree.
like weirdly competitive and like and
Yeah.
and not inclusive, and you know, and I'm never that person. Like if you're on a my show,
yeah.
I'm like opening my arms and I'm hugging you and I'm
Yeah.
praising you up and down, and I'm because
Well, I
I
don't know
know
if
that when
I'm
people
hugging, but-
feel good, you're going to bring out the best in them.
Right. Of
And
course.
you want
Of
the
course.
best.
Of
You want
course.
the best for your show. You want
Yeah.
people to come in.
And it's hard, man. To
this
do.
this genre
This one take
is
bullshit.
is it's unforgiving. That's
All
what
right,
it is.
Nazneen. Fuck, I can't say your name right now. I'm so
You said
tired.
it so well.
I know in the beginning I did.
Nazneen. You said it perfectly. It's an unusual name. I know.
Let me just say that these two are like a marriage made in heaven, India. Yeah, it was a pleasure, man. It's like I didn't know really what to expect. I mean, I kind of knew you a little bit, but I didn't know Carlo, and to have both of you come in, it was just I love to see especially two actors in a marriage that flourishes, that is successful. It's hard to find. And I don't anticipate it being any different 50 years from now. I really don't. Because they found each other. I found my wife, and it's just the way it is. Can we can we all write or do what needs to be done to get NAZNEEN Contractor back on GH? I mean, Sonny's alone. I don't think I'm ever alone. I don't mind being alone. Trust me, I'm cool with that. But let's get her back. Let's write to Frank and ABC, whoever, to see if she can come back, because she's so damn good. And Carla already has a job, so whatever. All right, thank you. Thank you for coming there.
Thank you. So much fun.
Bye.
Maurice.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, I had a great time.
It was easy.
When are we doing it next time?